This is Normandy, a French region that, as the rest of France in 1944, was occupied by the Nazis. The Allies had been trying to launch an invasion through this region to liberate France since the spring of 1943. This was called Operation Overlord, and it was crucial for the defeat of the Germans. The overall commander of Operation Overlord was General Dwight Eisenhower. The idea was to open up a new front on the west, so the Germans had to fight a two-front war as they had in World War I. This would take some pressure off of the Soviets and eventually lead to victory. The plan was to launch an amphibious invasion on June 5, 1944, using a combination of moonlight and low tide for evading obstacles as an advantage for the Allied forces. However, due to bad weather conditions, the invasion was delayed to the next day. Originally, Pas-de-Calais was the closest option for the invasion. However, it was also the most heavily defended. As such, Normandy became the best option for attack as it was relatively close to English ports and within range of Allied aircraft. 5 beaches in total were chosen for the invasion. Their codenames were Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword Beach. The Americans were set to land at Utah and Omaha Beach, while simultaneously dropping paratroopers in the nearby town Sainte-Marguerite. The British would land at Gold and Sword Beach, and the Canadians at Juno Beach. They would all eventually meet and move inland together towards the major city of Caen, and finally move into Germany. Operation Overlord started on June 6, 1944, also known as D-Day. The first troops landed at 6:30 a.m. on Utah Beach and began moving inland, meeting only staggered resistance. All landings were a success. However, Omaha had suffered heavy casualties, and the Allied troops converging on Caen had failed to take the city due to the German superior tanks. By the end of the day, there were over 150,000 Allied men ashore, with an estimated 10,000 injured and only 3,000 dead. In order for Allies to receive supplies on the shores of Normandy during D-Day, a brilliant system was deployed. Large concrete boxes called mulberries were dropped offshore, and bridges to the beaches were constructed to act as temporary harbors for the Allies. The days following D-Day consisted of concise Allied invasions on strategic German-controlled areas. One of these is the port of Cherbourg. At the time, the Allies only had the temporary Mulberry ports, and an invasion of the Cherbourg Peninsula was planned in order to capture this major port. The American troops reached the port on June 21st, but it took 8 days to secure Allied control, and by this time the Germans had destroyed most of the port's vital facilities. It took 1 month to repair. On June 26th, Operation Epsom was initiated to put pressure on the city of Caen, forcing German forces to focus on the area and allowing American forces in the west to build up and move around Caen in order to flank and secure more Allied ground. After the Allies had failed to take Caen with a ground-based attack 3 times, it was decided to heavily carpet-bomb the city, followed up by a direct ground assault through July 8th and 9th. By July 10th, the Allies had penetrated as far as the River Orne, and only southern and eastern suburbs of the city remained in German hands. On July 18th, 1944 through July 20th, Operation Goodwood was launched in an attempt to take complete control of Caen and further allow time for American forces to prepare to launch Operation Cobra. Unfortunately, the offensive took much longer than expected and ended up costing the Allies. However, it did successfully allow for Operation Cobra to be launched. Operation Cobra started on July 25th when American troops pushed through the city of Coutances. By July 30th, the Americans had taken Coutances and Avranches, and continued pushing inland to capture the Breton ports. They quickly took most of Brittany and moved east. On August 13th, the American troops reached Argentan and managed to capture the 7th German Army, taking 50,000 prisoners. Operation Cobra had been a huge success for the Allies, and a crucial part of defeating Germans. Operation Dragoon was started on August 15th as an Allied invasion from the southern parts of France. It led to the capture of the ports of Marseille and Toulon, strategically vital areas for supplying the Allied troops while opening a southern front from the Germans. Eisenhower intended to have the Allies pass by Paris in order to maintain pressure on the withdrawing Germans. However, at that moment, Charles de Gaulle, the leader of the Free French, fearing a communist takeover, ordered the French 2nd Armored Division to go into Paris in order to liberate the city. Eisenhower had little option under the circumstances but to order the US units to follow. As French troops fought their way through the suburbs, the population of Paris rose in revolt against their occupiers. But it was not until August 24th that forces reached the center of the city, and soon after Paris was liberated. A massive victory parade was held in the city. On August 30th, 1944, German forces continued their retreat across the River Seine, fully marking the end of Operation Overlord. By the end of August, Operation Overlord had successfully forced the German retreat out of France, and over 3 million Allied troops were now stationed on Germany's western border. Operation Overlord was the beginning of the end of the war for Germany.